Several committees in the House, led by Democrats, are moving forward with a sweeping investigation into the federal government's handling of the January 6th assault on the Capitol. Nancy Pelosi had initially sought a comprehensive commission, kind of similar to the 9/11 commission, to investigate. But Mitch McConnell refused, saying it would be too partisan unless both parties had equal representation. But here's the problem. That wouldn't really work. And there's an obvious reason. Most of McConnell's party is enthralled to a man who called into Fox News last night to spout this really disgusting lie about what happened.
Right from the start, it was zero threat. Look, they went in. They shouldn't have done it. Some of them went in and they're hugging and kissing the police and the guards. You know, they had great relationships. A lot of the people were waved in and then they walked in and they walked out.
It was zero threat. That's what he said. And it's not just Trump.
I'm also criticized because I've made the comment that on January 6th, I never felt threatened. Because I didn't. I knew those are people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement.
No threat. No big deal. This is also the party line from the hosts on Fox News, who like to mock the very idea of an insurrection.
According to the Honorable Jim McGovern and everyone else you just saw on the screen, this was not a protest. How dare you call it that? This was an insurrection. Insurrection, insurrection, insurrection.
Chewbacca guy sang a song. Then he spread some good vibes, and then he waved at the officers in the Capitol, and they waved back.
It was not an insurrection. It wasn't an armed invasion by a brigade of dangerous white supremacists. It wasn't. Those are lies.
Oh, really? Let's talk about who's lying. First of all, one of the people arrested and apprehended by the FBI called an insurrection in his messages. 5 people died as a result of the insurrection, including Officer Brian Sicknick, who we now have learned, it appears, had a toxic substance believed to be bear spray shot directly into his face, which he was seen bent over recovering from. 140 officers were injured and punched and pushed and trampled and crushed and beaten with flagpoles. We have video of one appearing to attempt to gouge the eye out of one. One did lose an eye. This was a violent assault. Officers attacked with no mercy, the crowd chanting, "Kill him with his own gun," people with concussions, rioters trying to capture, and who knows, maybe kill members of Congress. That is what happened. And they don't get to pretend otherwise. I'm joined now by Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania, former Trump impeachment manager who serves on the Judiciary Committee, one of the committees investigating the insurrection. Congresswoman, first, I wonder how much there is a shared sense of what happened, even on Capitol Hill, even on the members of Congress who were in that building on that day. If your colleagues across the aisle think it was all kind of like some jokey lark or not.
My blood is boiling with your initial reporting there. I was there on January the 6th. We were there in the Capitol, and the insurrectionists didn't give a damn if I was a Democrat or a Republican or a staffer or a visitor. They were out for an attack. They were out for an attack on our democracy. They were out for an attack on our joint session of Congress, including the Vice President of the United States. They chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." We were taken out in gas masks. They were shooting into the chamber. Are you kidding me? This wasn't some picnic. This was an insurrection where, thankfully, the Capitol Police and many others saved hundreds and hundreds of lives. People should stop listening to the former president and absolutely believe their eyes. There's nothing like what happened on January the 6th. It was a horror, and it terrified many people. It killed some. There's no point in talking with the former president. He's not credible, nor is Senator Johnson. These are people who have lost all credibility.
I'm a little unclear on the status right now of this commission. It seems to me urgent, right, that there's some large and centralized fact-finding enterprise, partly because the law enforcement aspect of this is sort of necessarily disparate. I mean, I think there's now over 200 cases. Every day we see more arrests. But it's the kind of thing that one would want some kind of definitive record, some kind of centralized fact-finding undertaking. Is that the idea behind this commission, and what is its status now?
Well, and you know that it was the Speaker of the House who immediately said we need to have a 9/11 style commission. I was around. I was an adult at the time of the 9/11 commission that was so ably chaired by former Governor of New Jersey, Tom Kean, and Vice Chair, the former Congressman Lee Hamilton. And so we need that kind of a commission, something that is nonpartisan, that is actually pro-American, to say what happened, why were we attacked. But you know what strikes me, Chris, is that there's a distinct difference between 9/11 and what happened on January the 6th. At 9/11, we were attacked from without. For January 6th, we were horrendously attacked from within. That's what's so heartbreaking about it. We had a former president of the United States incite Americans to attack Americans. So that's why this has become a political football. It should never be that.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.